The story starts with the beginning of all things, the creation of the mountains and valleys, the fish and crustaceans within the oceans, the woodlands and the mammals that dwelled within, and at last the creation of man. They inherited the world, and all was pure and honest. However, evil soon crept its way into the hearts of mankind when the fallen angel Satan unleashed sin upon the earth. Once the forbidden apple of enlightenment had been bitten, and the sacred soup of despair had been sipped, there was no saving mankind. Purity could only be restored with a full reset of all that lived. Thus, for 40 days and 40 nights, mankind looked over the horizon, waiting for the end to come. At last, the 3 horsemen of the apocalypse appeared. Their names were War, Pestilence, and Stephen. In their wake, they brought ruin and hopelessness. Humanity thought themselves doomed, but not all was lost, for Pandora had bravely closed the box of evil, sealing sin away from humanity forever. Wait, no. It says here that she actually opened the box. Well, that probably just made everything worse. With the world teetering on the brink of destruction, and Satan's influence growing by the day, will life be able to persist within this doomed world? Only time will tell. Roly Polies is an educational, entertainment, or edutainment game released in 1997 by Outside Directors Company. This game saw an extremely limited release in Japan, and plans to localize the game in the West went unrealized, which led to very few copies of the game existing. Roly Polies was actually considered lost media up until a few years ago, when a copy of the game was found and uploaded to the internet. This game is meant to be educational, in that it explains various sayings and idioms, or more specifically, Japanese proverbs, or kodowaza, through cutscenes, many of which are interactive to some degree. I believe another purpose of the game was to assist with teaching Japanese children how to read in English, since you can freely switch between Japanese and English translations of the text at any time through a button at the bottom of the screen. The way Roly Polies works is that you select a letter from the classic typing phrase, "The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog," on the title screen, leading to a word which begins with the chosen letter. I selected the letter F, which stands for fire. A cutscene or activity of some kind plays out and is then given context by a phrase which contains the word. In this case, the phrase is, "out of the frying pan and into the fire." There is one cutscene for each letter of the alphabet, and while the title screen contains multiple of certain letters, they all still lead to the same word. I'll go into more detail about the letters later on, but for now, I need to discuss this game's characters since they are kinda Roly Polies' main focus, as there's no real story to the game. Roly Polies features a cast of 8 epic characters. You can learn about each character's hobbies, likes, and dislikes by clicking on them on the main menu. Not all of the characters in Roly Polies are equal, as some appear in far more letter scenarios than others. The main 2 characters are the quick brown fox and the lazy dog themselves, Cho and Pawn. These 2 seem to have a sort of Tom and Jerry dynamic going on between them. Cho can be seen torturing Pawn just about every time they are next to each other. Sounds like a healthy relationship to me. Their shtick gets a bit tiresome in my opinion, so I can't say I personally like either of the 2 that much. Dr. Oaktoast is this cooking robotic crab guy. Like most fictional robotic crabs, he seems like a real bro overall. Boo is this pig thing who really upsets me. It's something about that evil smirk which just rubs me wrong. Boo is the star of some of the more interactive cutscenes, so I guess he has that going for him. Out of all the characters in this game, Boo is definitely the one who has killed before and will do it again. George is the ferret character. His bio claims he appreciates blobbing out. George seems to be one of the most well-respected characters by this game's fanbase. Bannaton is a scientist Jimmy Neutron monkey who seems to always act as a sort of lawful neutral mediator towards the other characters. I'm not really sure why he thinks his intelligence permits him to be the judge, jury, and executioner within the world of Roly Polies, but I really do not like this character too much. If you thought Batman's moral code made no sense, then Banatan's is even worse, and I'll explain why later on. The three bagworms Del Montes are certainly more based than cringe, to say the least. They only appear like twice in the game, but they steal the show each and every time. Last but certainly not least is the bird Akiko. She also unfortunately appears very little in the game, but I would probably say she's the best character. She seems to be the only one who actually has a job and contributes something to the world besides pain and misery. She's a hard-working citizen and an American hero. With all that in mind, here is the objective Roly-Poly's character tier list. This game's characters can seem a bit annoying at first, but I went on to find them somewhat endearing after playing through the game completely. With all the character explanations out of the way, I want to go into detail on some of the game's letters. Clicking on a letter on the title screen can range from leading to a simple cutscene to a feature-length RPG experience with leveling and stat growth, as seen in the letter M's minigame. You don't really know what you'll get when you click on each letter, which is something I find pretty interesting about the game. I won't look at all 26 letters in this video, but I will talk about some of the more interesting ones. The letter A features a virtual reality shooting gallery thing, and the letter P leads to a boss fight against the giant enemy plant. The letter V contains a gambling minigame where you win each time, whether you bet on odds or evens. While it's obvious that the message of this activity is that gambling is great and you should do it as much as possible, I think it also effectively portrays the illusion of choice. Some of the letters are unexpectedly informative, such as the letter O, which shares a recipe for creating miso. It's actually a very in-depth recipe which also covers the history of the food in question and how it's best enjoyed. Roly-Poly's seamlessly combines the mediums of video games and cooking recipes in a way Paula Deen could only ever dream of. The letter E puts you in a high-stakes staring contest against the ferret. Despite how old this game is, it sometimes manages to be quite timely, as exemplified by the letter X containing a Ray William Johnson reference.
What's happening for him? Fat guy's falling off a skateboard, so that's what's happening.
I mentioned earlier my distaste for a few of this game's characters, and I want to explain why exactly I don't like them. In the letter K, the bagworms are peacefully having a civil disagreement, which ends in 2 deaths. When the monkey waltzes on over and sees this, he doesn't call the authorities or anything like that. He takes matters into his own hands and kills the final bagworm, as a sort of vengeance, I guess. Similarly, in the letter Q, the pig and the fox are duking it out like gentlemen, no hitting below the belt and all that, when the monkey again just comes out of nowhere and takes both of them out. Why does he do this? What gives him the right to be this vigilante mediator? It's like he sees 2 characters trying to kill each other and gets really upset because he's the only one allowed to kill. Are the other characters even okay with this? His moral code makes even less sense as there are times when one character clearly needs assistance, but he just does nothing. In the letter R, Han is getting absolutely ass blasted on all fronts by Cho, yet Banatan just sits in the tree as an observer. It's alright that the bagworms are also just watching, however, since the expectations I place on them aren't very high. The monkey isn't even hot shit anyway, since it's revealed in the letter N that he's incapable of climbing a tree despite, you know, being a monkey, and has to rely upon the use of a non-Euclidean ladder device. In the letter I, it's shown that he can synthesize bananas practically ex nihilo, so he could pretty much end world hunger, but chooses to keep his technology to himself and hide it away inside his home, which, by the way, looks just like him, so he's also a huge narcissist. Anyway, the monkey isn't too bad of a character, and if you like him, that's good for you, and I hope what I said didn't hurt your opinions of him. The fox is a whole nother story. He's easily the most antagonistic of the 8 characters. He constantly belittles and causes pain upon the others, who rarely have the courage to stand up to him. Anytime a potential moment arises for the fox to finally meet his maker as punishment for his transgressions against his community, he somehow always manages to cheat death. In the letter O, when the fox unleashes a surprise attack on the crab yet only manages to take off a few of his legs, the crab has the perfect opportunity to bury his meat cleaver into the fox's skull, putting an end to his reign of terror once and for all. Instead, the crab chooses to take a half measure and cook food for the fox instead, peacefully ending the altercation, yet also allowing the fox to continue his murderous rampage and avoid the divine retribution he deserves.
He can't keep getting away with it!
Roly Polies is a very interesting game, though there is something which I really feel the need to discuss. It was something I felt but could not accurately describe when I first played through the game over a year ago. Only when creating this review was I able to finally realize what exactly was wrong. Roly Polies is meant to be a sort of edutainment game which is clearly geared towards a younger audience, but with its bright and colorful graphical style. However, I'm not really sure I would consider this game appropriate for children since it contains some rather mature themes and quite a few scenes of graphic violence. The creators of Roly Polies did intend for the game to be enjoyable by both younger and older players, but I take issue with this as well. The thing is, Roly Polies isn't an appropriate game for general audiences either. No, Roly Polies is for men. Whether it was done intentionally by the game's creators or not, this game's themes are far too complex and difficult to grasp for those who do not hit the gym at least 8 days a week. Roly Polies covers some really serious topics, such as the nature of conflict, the value of being and existence, what it means to forgive those who have caused you endless suffering, and how the ferret is sad because he ran out of milk. Of course, any illiterate 3-year-old could play through this game while ignoring these themes, but there are still other aspects to Roly Polies which make it unfit for those of weak body and mind. The game can be quite disturbing at times, such as the spooky cutscene for the letter T, which shares the message that the passage of time and aging are inevitable. The game can also be pretty shocking, as the letter D shows the pig creating a mound out of his own doo-doo feces. Yuck. Some of the more subtle humor in Roly Polies can be pretty crude, and definitely not suitable for younger and weaker audiences. The most obvious example of this humor can be found in a few of the characters' names. Take Boo's name for example. If you just add 2 little letters to the end of his name, what do you get? That's right, Bud. The same goes for Cho's name, which becomes Chode. Some of the other characters' names also become something pretty naughty when a few letters are changed. This crude, sexual humor is certainly inappropriate for a kid's game, but it's a cornerstone of men's entertainment, or mentertainment. Roly Polies also teaches morals which are flat out harmful to those easily influenced, such as younger children. I already mentioned the letter V, which seems to encourage gambling, but the letter J shares not one harmful message, but 2. This letter showcases Akiko's daily routine. During the day, she works. After that, however, she does this. Do I even need to point out what's wrong here? Obviously, the problem with this scene is that Akiko only gets like 5 hours of sleep. Children need at least 8 hours of sleep to guarantee proper development. Furthermore, she uses the pecking style of typing at her job. I don't care that she's a bird. It's not right for Akiko to encourage this incorrect typing method, and I will be expecting an apology. Everything I just mentioned was probably reason enough for Western companies to lose any interest in publishing Roly Polies, since the game would surely produce nothing but bad press. Yet it gets even worse. In the letter S, the pig straight up has his junk out. Actually, what were they thinking by having this in the game? Like, is it just a wacky character trait of the pig to just let it all hang out during his leisurely time? I don't know, maybe I'll find something out in his autobiography. Oh, of course, why would I expect to find answers in here? It's nothing but Mattress Firm coupons! Anyway, Roly Polies is a pretty cool game. But if you want to give it a try and do not eat, drink, and breathe protein, you might find yourself unable to last very long playing it. Don't say I didn't warn you. If you are able to handle Roly Polies, you'll find yourself fully immersed in an exciting world with over 50 hours of gameplay, assuming of course that you click on each letter approximately 60 times. I'm going to have to give this game a 9 out of 10. This game rocks my socks. But I can't give it a perfect score, since I really feel like the developers should have toned down the game's heavy-handed themes a bit if they wanted to better appeal to the game's intended audience. The fact that this game was implicated during investigations into 3 separate mass cholera outbreaks throughout 1998 and refused to testify in court also hurts the score a bit, but I can mostly forgive that little incident. Everybody makes mistakes. This game does actually have a sequel, though it is unfortunately lost media with only a short demo of it currently available to play. Who knows, you might be able to find the missing sequel in your own home. Simply venture into the attic of your house with nothing but a flickering candle to light your way, and spend a good couple hours or days rummaging through whatever you find up there. You might come across a cursed Sumerian artifact which unleashes a plague onto your bloodline. Or you might find the lost Roly-Poly sequel. This is a risk you may have to take, and as Roly-Polies himself would say, nothing ventured, nothing gained. Thanks for watching this video. Please leave a like if you enjoyed it, or if you know how I can get in contact with the guy who did the voice work for Shrek and those DreamWorks straight to YouTube short videos. I have a proposition for him.